Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Science fiction, the great teacher, the great inspiration. It helps us see the endless possibilities of life. So let's be inspired together.
Come with me if you want to live.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We are not sending out interceptors. We have taken them completely by surprise.
Hello everybody, welcome to Trick or Critique, and I am your host here, Commodore Jeff. And I have a review for Auquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom. It's funny how that sounds like, like an Indiana Jones title or something. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So I watched this last night. I've been putting it off, because, Aquaman isn't like one of my favorite comic book characters, but I have been watching, the DC comic character movies as they come out, as well as the Marvel films that they've been making too. I don't know. I just, call me crazy, I guess. But I was, interested. I mean, I did see the other Aquaman film, which wasn't too bad. And, the only problem overall that I have, with these Aquaman films is, I don't like the way they kind of portray Aquaman in the movie that way. It's sort of like they've taken Aquaman and turned him into DC's version of Thor. This big, clownish kind of character, a little, rough around the edges, I never saw Aquaman that way. But it does make me reflect a little bit back on another Aquaman type character that it's not really in DC Comics. But it did have its own TV show back in the 70s with Patrick Duffy starring as the lead character, and it was called Man from Atlantis. And I did really like that a whole lot better than, say, the character of Aquaman. But to focus here on this movie, the newest movie, I got mixed feelings about it. Would I recommend it to anybody who isn't into superhero movies or something like that? No. Okay, I wouldn't. If you're going to enjoy this film, I think you're going to have to really like Aquaman and all the other characters. So you got to be a comic book fanatic, I guess, basically, to appreciate it. But even then, you might find yourself kind of cringing a little bit at some of what went on in the film. It did seem much more lighthearted than the previous film, which I think hurt it more than anything. They swamped it with more special effects than it really needed to have. I don't think the story really demanded to have this kind of special effects attention that it got. Jason Momoa, who plays Aquaman, unfortunately, this wasn't his best performance, for that character. I think he come off more like a big lummox and more of a clown than someone who's now in charge of an entire empire underwater and, has new responsibilities. You don't get that vibe off of him that he's really in charge of anything, and they bring his brother Ohm back from the previous movie Which to me, I mean, I like the actor who plays Ohm, and I think if they'd have done this, I think they should have chose him to play Aquaman from the very beginning, instead of who they ended up with, because I think he kind of looks more like the Aquaman that I imagine, and I wish that's the way it would have went, but it didn't. So anyway, they bring his brother back into the story, which felt more like they're deliberately hurrying up, trying to close something, to finish a chapter, if you will, in this with Jack Snyder kind of thing here, that they're saying they're trying to close, shut it down, the whole Jack Snyder movie thing that's been going on since Batman versus Superman, or before that, Man of Steel, okay, from the very beginning. And I'm like, well, it wasn't all bad, okay? Not all those movies were bad. It's just that I think what was hurting them is the fact that they're competing against Marvel. And instead of trying to make their own bones in the superhero genre, they're trying to steal someone else's thunder, or you know what I'm saying? So DC and Marvel really ought to just go their own separate ways and do their own thing, and stop trying to compete with each other, because I think it's hurting both labels, as it were, in there. And I think that maybe that's probably what kind of hurt this latest Aquaman film, was you could feel the Marvel vibe, more or less. And the funny part is in the movie, Jason Momoa's character Aquaman, calls his brother Loki in the film, and I'm thinking, boy, that was a bad mistake, because the movie already feels like it's like a Marvel knockoff, and then they turn around and they throw that line in, and it was supposed to be a joke, but it really wasn't a joke. It more or less kind of said it all right there of what this film is. It's just another version of Marvel here. Jason being the new Thor in the DC universe, and and then of course if he's Thor, then his brother's got to be Loki, and then lo and behold, one of the lines in the movie was he calls his brother Loki. So I thought that was really, no, you shouldn't have done that. And the film suffered, I think, because of it. Now, as far as action goes, yeah, it's entertaining. Okay, I'll give it that. It's entertaining to watch, the special effects and all that, even though it looks like a pea soup of all kinds of CGI things going on. Nicole Kidman wasn't her best performance in any movie I've ever seen. I mean, I think she was really... I'm sorry, I'm not going to shit all over her, because I do like her as an actress, but I'm going to say it wasn't her best movie. Who else was in that? Oh, Amber Heard. Amber Heard... she seemed less into the movie than the first time that she was in it. I don't know. She definitely didn't seem like she was really on board with the film. I don't know. It seemed like her interest in it wasn't there. She's just going through the moves. And Jason Momoa, like I said, just acting too much like a bumbling fool. And Jason Momoa is a good actor when you put him in the right role. Like when you saw him in Dune there, hey, he's a good actor. Okay, I've seen him in other things, and the first time he did Aquaman, played that character, was good. Okay, it wasn't one of his Aquaman movies, but he was introduced into DC Universe through Batman and Justice League, whatever the hell they call that. But anyway, and I think he was a bit darker, less humor, and maybe he should have stayed with that. Instead, they lightened him up to the point of ridiculousness, and that's what hurt him, I think, at the end. Plus, they had some, goofy things in the movie, like the squid that's really a pet, and that's, and does these quirky things, and again, that reminds me a lot of Marvel when they do stuff like that in there. It just seems like, look, what are we trying to do? We're trying to bring DC and Marvel together as just one big fucking comic book thing under one flag. I mean, because it seems to me like everybody's borrowing each other's thunder here. And I could see why it didn't do that well in the theaters. I don't think I was the only one that saw it, you know, the flaws in it. Or wished that the acting was a little different. Dolph Lundgren, if I can say his name right, still in this film. I find it kind of funny that, I mean, because remember he played He-Man in the 80s, I think it was, in that movie, Masters of the Universe. He played, and that was really the only time he was a superhero before now. And you know, when you see him, he seems out of place, because I think people will most remember him as being that big Russian boxer in Rocky IV, who really made quite an impact in the Rocky franchise. You know, because his character kills Apollo, one of the main characters in the Rocky film franchise, and I think that was kind of how we were introduced to him. And then when he came out and did He-Man, it just, it didn't really seem to catch any, didn't hit no pay dirt, as it were. But he did other movies along the way, and he kind of just faded from existence, after, into the 90s. But now that he's trying to make a comeback in film, like in one of the more recent Creed films where he came back, and I think it was Creed 2, where he brought his character from Rocky back. And now he's showing up in these superhero flicks. It's a little bit weird, because they're, it's just, it's like he's repeating history, because that's kind of what he did in the 80s, right? He comes as into Rocky, and then the He-Man, and now he's come back into, the Rocky spinoff, and then he's doing, he can't seem to get away from that. But, he's not a bad actor, okay? I'll tell you that. I mean, that sometimes he comes off as a bit lazy, because I saw him in some horror flicks, some cheap, low-budget horror flicks that he was in, and he seems to come off a little bit lazy and stuff. But I think that works for him in a way, because he just it makes him more menacing, when he acts low-key and kind of slow. But yeah, he was in this, and his performance didn't change from the first Aquaman film. And I'm trying to think. There was one character they didn't bring back in this one here, who was pivotal in the first film, but they kind of killed him off. And I can't remember his name, but he acted in one of the first Spider-Man film in the early 2000s, I guess. He was the Goblin, Green Goblin. And I'm sorry, I can't remember people's names. I'm terrible with names. I can remember faces, but names eludes me to no friggin' end. But yeah, he wasn't in it because they kind of wrote his character off. They killed it off, and so I was like, he's a good actor. I like seeing him in the films too. He brings a certain caliber of acting in there. I like. The runtime of the movie didn't seem long, although there was a lot of story there. But I think not so much story, but a lot of action in the story. A lot of action made the story last longer because they had so many fights and everything going on at the same time. So, I feel like, it felt like there was plenty of time given to this story. Any more time probably would have made it worse. Any less time, the same. So I think they gave it just the right amount of time to tell the story. Would I want to go back and watch it again? Probably not. Okay, probably not. I think for me, one time was enough. And I mean, if you want to see it just for shits and giggles, wait till it comes out in a cheap way. Excuse me, and then watch it. Okay. There's no rush to go out and spend $29 to go buy the DVD, or just to rent it on streaming. for an exorbitant amount of money. Just wait till you can get a discount and watch it that way. I think it's, you know, you won't feel bad if you don't like it that you spent a little bit of money on it. I would feel bad if you watched it and you paid a big ton of money for it and you walked away thinking, ugh, it sucked. I wouldn't ask anybody to do that. If I'm telling you to wait on this, please, you can wait. You know, I'll tell you that they left the door open at the end to where there might be a sequel still. I don't know why that is, because I was under the impression that, you know, this was, you know, the Jack Snyder films, his universe of heroes was over. Okay, I thought that was it. You know, no more of these films based on that. Which it's like, well, what about Wonder Woman? Because I liked Wonder Woman. I like Gal Gadot. Are we not going to bring her? Are we shutting the door to her? I mean, she's been like, you know, a favorite of everybody's to have her back. You know, since Linda Carter. You know, and to see her on the big screen, I mean, in the way, I mean, it was spectacular. I feel like, you know, shit, you know, we could still have more Wonder Woman films. You know, she's still up to it. I mean, I think, you know, and it would be, I think, a mistake to replace her so soon, you know, with somebody else. I mean, give her some time. She's young. Christ. She's not old. She's young. I mean, but I'd say the same thing about Ben Affleck. I mean, I didn't, you know, Ben Affleck's portrayal of Batman was fine. You know, I didn't have any problem with that. He gives you the take of an older, more experienced Batman, which is an interesting take. But, you know, the movie The Flash, you know, they kind of upended a lot of that stuff. I don't know why they did that, but they did. But the thing is that, you know, like I said before, the Jack Snyder stuff is not all bad, okay? I like the idea that they were bringing some villains into the game that they never played before on the big screen in the past, okay? We were introduced to some other new characters. Like Cyborg, I think, you know, is probably, I'm not going to say an old character, but he's kind of new a little bit because, you know, he doesn't have, like, that many followings. To me, I always looked at him as a ripoff of the Terminator or something like that. But he is a DC superhero, and, you know, they brought him on the big screen, which was, I was like, okay, well, that's good because we're getting to be introduced to some different characters, the audiences are. You know, for those who don't really read the books, we're getting to see some new faces. The Flash was nice to have on the big screen finally, because, you know, it seemed to work good on television. And then we get Wonder Woman back, and then there's Superman. You know, so it seemed like it should be all positive. I mean, I heard there would be a Green Lantern would be reintroduced into it. So, you know, it was a lot of hope there, but, you know, people just, I don't know what happened. The audiences were just kind of pissed at Jack Snyder for how he did things. I mean, I guess you can't please everybody. But it's funny how in this day and age, the people who are displeased seem to get heard the most about something, and those who are enjoying it, you know, they don't say anything. They just watch the films and then that's it. But the ones that watch them and complain, they complain on a huge scale. They go on, you know, channels like this, like YouTube here, and they just spew vile, you know, and tear the shit out of it. And, you know, I feel like, you know, hey, you know, fine, you didn't like it, but do you got to go on this months-long rampage against the film? Because to me, that's crossing the line to being a critic to just being, you know, like industrial espionage. Okay, you're deliberately trying to sink the film, you know, by putting out bad reviews week after week after week over the same fucking material. Okay, you had to say, okay, move on. And leave it up to the people. Don't try and indoctrinate everybody into your way of thinking, okay? Not everybody's going to agree with you. If you can get that in your head when you do these videos and stuff, then you won't be stressed out when people come to you and say, well, I watched it and I liked it. You know, because they don't agree with you, I mean, you shouldn't take it as a slap in your face. If you didn't like it, fine. Somebody else did. That's why when I talk about films and stuff, I'm not trying to tell you people to watch it or not watch it, but I would recommend it or not recommend it, and I'll tell you why. Okay? I can't, that's as honest as I can get. I don't know what else. I mean, I can't put my brain waves out there so you can read them, all right? I'll tell you the best way that I can, you know, whether or not it's worth the watch or not, okay? And I try to be in the middle of the road. I'm not trying to be, you know, I'm pro this or pro that. No, I'm going to take the middle road where a lot of people don't like to walk these days, even in politics. I'm going to take the middle road and try to be unbiased, you know, and just try to, you know, be on both sides and try to give you the choice so you can make up your own mind. You got better information and you make better choices when you know more about what it is you're dealing with. So, like in this film here, Aquaman, yeah, it's got its good points, it's got its bad points. You know, almost every movie does. Even the worst movies that people say, oh, it sucked, even those movies, there's some good in it somewhere. It's just harder to find. But in the best movies, there are going to be things you're not going to like about it. Okay? There's no such thing as a perfect film. You might think there is, but, you know, even some of my favorite films are not all perfect. I mean, they're just good to different levels, but, you know, there's going to be parts in it you're not going to like. Okay? We shouldn't obsess so much over that. Just look at the movie as an overall experience. Was it positive or was it negative? Did you really hate it or did you really like it? You know, where do you stand on that? And so when you go to see this film, okay, just keep that in mind. It's not all good, but it's not all bad either. Okay, you'll have fun with it. You're going to hate it in some spots, probably. But in my opinion, it's the way I would rate it as maybe a C+ or a B- or something in that area. It's not what I call one of their better movies that DC's put out. But it is worth at least one watch, okay, in my opinion. At least that way you can say, well, I did see it, and then when you say why you liked it or didn't like it, at least you can say, well, I did see it. Okay, I'm not just saying this because I heard somebody else say this on YouTube. Don't run with my opinion about it and go and base your opinion on the film on what I said, okay? Go see it for yourself, okay? But, like I said, don't spend big money on it, okay? Don't. I think, just don't put your expectations so high. Keep it low so that way you're surprised when you watch it. Okay, that's what I do. Is I don't like to go by what people say about a film. I want to see it myself. So that way when I go in there, I'm not like let down because it was built up so high, or like really, well, this is ridiculous because it was built so low. I want to go in my own view of it and walk out with my own view of it. Okay. I'm going to go see the Dune film, the part 2 there that's out eventually. Maybe I'll probably do it in the week, during the week, because the weekends right now, I don't know what the hell's going on here in Bangor, but the friggin' town is full of people. I don't think it has anything to do with basketball, because I went over to BAM today, and the inside of that place was mobbed, okay? And it was mobbed not with just people, but kids. Little kids all over the damn place. They're upstairs and downstairs and riding the elevator and not, and grabbing and knocking over toys. What the hell is going on in Bangor today? Jesus, and the people at the registers were dressed up in Dr. Seuss costumes or something. So I don't know. Anybody out there knows what the hell's going on with BAM today? Please let me know, because I'm a member of BAM's customer, discount stuff. But I didn't get no indication in the email today there was going to be any event going on there at BAM. But then, it isn't just BAM, because after I went there and I had some lunch, I went to Applebee's, and the place was mobbed, standing room only. I mean, I waited, not very long, but every table was full. Every chair was taken. And again, kids are in there, and they're screaming and running, and they got coloring books, and they're jumping on everybody's lap. I mean, what the hell is going on out here today? Christ. It feels like there's some kind of a holiday or some kind of a day off from school or something, but it's Saturday, So I don't know what the hell's going on, but it certainly surprised the hell out of me. You can't find any place to park anywhere. I tried to go over to Target, got to park way, way out on the boondocks here to get into that store, because it is full in there. It's full. And I don't see how these stores can run with minimal employees on days like today, it's got to be insane, okay? And I just watched a goddamn documentary about a major train crash, excuse me, major train crash that happened in Canada back in the 80s. These two trains head-on collision. One was a supply train, the other one was a passenger train. Killed over 70 people, injured dozens others. It's still considered the worst train accident in Canadian history. In fact, it's probably the worst train crash ever in railroad history. I don't know, but it was bad. It was bad because those two engines, when they hit nose to nose, okay, they disintegrated. It was like they just turned to powder at the speeds that they were traveling, each one traveling over 90 miles an hour. Hitting together like that, I mean, the death was instantaneous to anybody in those engines. And it went from car to car to car to car, you know, and it just smashed everything. Now, that one supply train had dangerous chemicals on board, of course, and other things. And of course, that whole area had to be, you know, cordoned off. The other side, bodies everywhere. Okay, some burned alive in the aftermath of it. And I was watching this on YouTube. Terrible, terrible story. I mean, I wasn't even aware that happened in the 80s because I was just a kid then, and it was probably all over the news at the time, and maybe some of you out there remember it. But I was like in junior high, or you know, what was it, 86, 87, that's when that happened, I guess, 85 or 86, right around that area. Okay, I was still just a kid. I didn't even really watch the news that much. But big friggin' crash, you know, big crash. And, you know, due to, you know, the engineers and one train only having got 5 hours of sleep, the other one was sick with the flu. And they had a caboose in that train. This was just before they stopped putting cabooses on these trains, but they had one guy in the caboose, and for some reason he didn't press a button that was supposed to lock all the brakes on the train. When they pass a certain point, that train was supposed to stop. And there's a track and a track up here, and this track is made to connect to that other track, so that way a train can sit here and wait till the other train passes underneath. Well, they didn't do that. They passed the point where they were supposed to make that connection to the other track, and they went right by it. Crash. And so they investigate why the hell did this happen. Well, they find out that the crews on the trains were or at least on the supply train, was exhausted. CN, I think, was the name of the company there, the railway company. They were exhausted. Okay, they were complaining about, you know, being weak, and, you know, one was sick and coughing and had the flu and everything, but he had to report to work. And plus the company itself had cut staff members, I call staff members, but people that run the trains, they cut it back, okay, cutting corners, trying to save money. They reduced the number of people that are on these trains, you know, to half, which significantly, you know, made it more stressful for the people still on, you know, working there. So in other words, paid the same amount of money, but now they got to work twice as hard. Okay, and once again, workers being treated like shit. This happens in Canada just like it does in the United States. Okay, and that train was going from one end of Canada all the way to the California side, you know, over there. So it was a very long trek for this train to go across the country. Now, Canada is a much wider country than the United States is, if you look at it on a map. Okay, the United States it's sort of like, it's shaped like a wedge in a way. If you go from northern Canada down into like Mexico, you'll see that it goes like that. So it's a bigger piece of land up there. So that track, for that train, was quite a long haul. And the other train going the opposite direction again, you know. So they're both booking it. and when that other train, the supply train, didn't do what it was supposed to do to slow down and get onto that passing rail there, so that way the other train could get by safely. When they didn't do that and they went right by it, that should have been like, uh-oh, you know, because the guy in the back had to have known that that red light was there, right? If he was paying attention, he had to know that they had to pull over into the passing lane, as it were, on the track to let the other one go through. They didn't do that. So obviously people in the engine were not awake, maybe not even aware that anything was going to happen, because they were both exhausted. So crash, you know. So yeah, I mean, pretty terrible, you know. I know I spent a lot of time talking about that, but anyway, like I said about the movie, again, watch at your own risk. Hope you enjoy it, and if you don't, please don't blame me for it, because I'm just doing a review, and in my, I think people look for honest opinions about films instead of listening to what sounds like indoctrination from certain folks here on YouTube that like to do commentary on films, but they do it in a sort of a dishonest fashion, as far as I'm concerned. So, anyway, take care, everybody. Talk to you again later.